We've been following Savitri in the quest to find her soul. First, she had to enter the inner countries. We followed her on that journey through different layers of the inner self. And when she came very deep, near to the soul, then in the previous canto, we saw the three soul powers, like three goddesses, expressions of the powers and quality of the soul acting in the world. And we saw how each of those soul powers introduced herself, explained her work and her mission. And then we saw how this power gets perverted and distorted in human life, in the lower human nature. And those lower distorted expressions of sorrow, of weakness, and of pride, these things expressed themselves also. And to each Madonna, to each of her soul powers, Savitri explained that they are incomplete and that she is going in search of their source, her soul, and that she will return and give them to each of them the qualities that they are missing. They have to complement each other. Strength has to complement compassion. Light has to illumine strength. And we saw how Savitri explains what that power of soul light must do to lead humanity forward. So then we came to this Canto 5. Savitri passes through a kind of darkness before entering into that deep realm where there's a sense suddenly of recognition. Oh, this is the home of the soul. And it's expressed in a symbolic landscape, a hill, a cave which is like a rock temple, and there the entrance to the temple is described. And now we will start, she's just crossed the threshold. We will see what she sees, what she experiences in that rock temple, which is the cave where she will find the divine presence, her own soul. On the walls, covered with significant shapes, looked at her the life scene of man and beast, and the high meaning of the life of gods, the power and necessity of these numberless worlds, and faces of beings, and stretches of world space, spoke the succinct and inexhaustible hieratic message of the climbing plains. In their immensitude, signing infinity, they were the extension of the self of God, and housed, impassively receiving all, his figures and his small and mighty acts, and his passion, and his birth and life and death, and his return to immortality. To the abiding and eternal is their climb. To the pure existence, everywhere the same. To the sheer consciousness and the absolute force and the unimaginable and formless bliss. To the mirth in time and the timeless mystery of the triune being who is all and one, and yet is no one but himself apart. There was no step of breathing men, no sound, only the living nearness of the soul. Yet all the worlds and God himself were there, for every symbol was a reality and brought the presence which had given it life. All this she saw and inly felt and knew, not by some thought of mind, but by the self. A light not born of sun or moon or fire, a light that dwelt within and saw within, shedding an intimate visibility, made secrecy more revealing than the word. Our sight and sense are a fallible gaze and touch, and only the Spirit's vision is wholly true. As thus she passed in that mysterious place, through room and room, through door and rock-hewn door, she felt herself made one with all she saw. Rosa, you will begin? No, Dhanalakshmi.
On the walls covered with significant shapes, looked at her the life scene of man and beast, and the high meaning of the life of gods, the power and necessity of these numberless worlds, and phases of beings and stretches of world space, spoke the succinct and inexhaustible hieratic message of the climbing plains.
Yes. So he's already told us that this cave is like a rock temple. And in our South Indian temples, when we enter inside, there's courtyard after courtyard, pillar after pillar, and they are all carved. There are friezes around the bottom. We climb up a few steps. We're in a hall. There are statues and figures everywhere. It is something like that. Or it is like the pictures we see of ancient Egyptian temples, where they had carvings and paintings on the walls. All of these are significant. The walls were covered with significant shapes. And these significant shapes are telling the whole life scene of human beings and animals. Nowadays we have books and we read about things. But there were thousands of years when most people couldn't read. And so these messages, spiritual messages, messages about the meaning of life, they were told in pictures. And probably there were priests who used to show people around and tell them what they meant, all the pictures. I had that wonderful experience once at Darasuram temple near Chidambaram. And it was such a wonderful experience. For over an hour, the pujari showed us around and explained the meaning of each picture. Wonderful. So it's something like that. So she's seeing the life scene of man and beast and the high meaning of the life of gods. It's not only man and beasts, there are also these higher cosmic powers, no? And scenes not only from our material world, but from all the numberless worlds, the subtle worlds that we don't perceive with our physical senses. All these are depicted there, and faces of beings, and even stretches of world space, landscapes. No? And all these things are speaking. They are giving a message. They are giving the succinct and inexhaustible hieratic message of the climbing plains. Succinct means that it's been stated very briefly and concisely, but in a way that's full of meaning. And that message is inexhaustible. It's always revealing new aspects of itself. It can't be, it's like this book, we can go on reading it for centuries and it will always reveal new depths of meaning. The hieratic message. It's a sacred message which is carrying a sacred meaning, a divine meaning. And this is the message of the climbing planes, the many different planes of existence which are allowing our manifestation, our life here on earth to develop higher and higher and higher and higher possibilities. The climbing planes, planes of existence. Suresh, you'd read the next sentence?
In the immensitude,
signing
infinity, they were the extension of the self of God, and housed impassively receiving all his figures and his small and mighty acts, and his passion and his birth and life and death, and his return to immortality.
Yes. So they is the planes, the climbing planes of existence, which are arranged in an ascending and descending order. They are so huge, these planes, that they indicate infinity. They speak of what is beyond manifestation, beyond time and space and limit. And these planes are the extension of the self of God. God has extended himself, spread himself out in the form of all these planes of existence and the worlds in them and the beings and the happenings and events that happen in them. So those planes, it says, are giving a house, a habitation, for the figures of God and his acts, his small acts and his mighty acts. They are impassively receiving all. They are receiving all the possibilities, potentialities of the divine and allowing them expression. Even his passion, his suffering, his birth, his life, his death, and this journey that is happening to all of us, that we are all part of, the journey of the return from material existence to immortality. We'll go on, Bebel, yeah?
To the abiding and eternal is their climb, to the pure existence everywhere the same, to the sheer consciousness and the absolute force, and the unimaginable and formless bliss, to the mirrors in time and the timeless mystery of the triune being who is all and one, and yet is no one but himself apart.
So their climb, this is the climb of the planes, the ascending planes. They are giving steps, upward steps. And those upward steps lead towards the abiding and the eternal, what is permanent, what doesn't change. To the pure existence that is everywhere the same. This pure existence is pervading all the worlds and all of us. That pure existence expresses itself in consciousness, force, to the sheer consciousness. Sheer means pure, and the absolute force, and the bliss, the unimaginable and formless bliss. So these lines remind us about the formulation that the sages have given to the supreme existence as we can perceive it from the manifestation. The Sat, the pure existence, the Chit Tapas, the consciousness force, or Chit Shakti, and the Ananda, the unimaginable and formless bliss. All these qualities of the Supreme Being are expressing themselves in all the planes. And the planes are climbing up towards that state. And that state is an integral state. It combines the mirth in time. Mirth is merriment, laughter in time, and the timeless mystery. These are two aspects of one experience. These are the state or being of the triune being, the three in one, who is all, everything in the manifestation, who is the one self of everything, and yet is no one but himself apart. That Satchidananda is not limited by any of his expressions. He's always free and independent, not bound by any of the appearances he puts on or any of the experiences which he has. Alice, you'd read?
There was no step of grieving men, no sound, only the living nearness of the soul. Yet all the worlds and God himself were there, for every symbol was a reality and brought the presence which had given it life.
Yes. So it's absolutely silent. Savitri is there, but she's there in her subtle body. There's no step of breathing men, no material being. There's no sound. Only the entire atmosphere is this living nearness of the soul, the innermost reality. But although it's so silent, yet everything is there, all the worlds, in all the climbing planes, and the reality of God himself, it's felt there, because all these symbols, everything that's pictured on the wall, is a reality, something real, which is carrying the presence which has given life to those figures and scenes. I think this is a characteristic of being close to the soul. We feel the living reality of all the symbols. All these symbols have a living reality. When we are in our surface being, we don't feel that. We feel with our senses, we interpret with our mind. But the soul has a direct experience, and it feels the living reality of the one who is inhabiting all this. You would read, Mum?
All deep she saw, and in light fell anew, not by some thought of mine, but by the self. Thou light not born of sun, of moon, or cloud, thou light that dwell within and saw within, shaking an intimate visibility, made secrecy more revealing than the world. One sight and sense are unafraidable gaze and touch, and only the spirit's vision is wholly true.
Thank you. So all these things which have been described, Savitri saw them, and she feels them deeply, inwardly, or within. And she knows them, she is aware of them and understands them, not by some thought of mind, but directly by the self. This way of knowing that we have about ourselves. We experience things around us and outside us through our senses, through our mind, but things that are within ourselves we know directly. So in that same way, she is knowing all these things. She's knowing all these things through a consciousness, a light that doesn't depend on the sun or the moon or a flame. It's a light of consciousness that's living within and seeing within. And that gives such, he says, an intimate visibility. Everything is seen so clearly and in detail and in a whole, in a very intimate way, in the way that we know things about ourselves. This intimate visibility made secrecy more revealing than the word. All these things are secret and hidden, and yet this inner light of consciousness sees these secret things and understands their meaning much, much more deeply than I can possibly put into words. And even Aurobindo He has put all these words here to help us to see with that intimate visibility. Our normal sense and sight are fallible. They cannot be relied on. They mislead us. They can fail. Only the vision of the Spirit is wholly true and can tell us how things really are, the deeper truth within. Would you like to read?
As thus she passed in that mysterious place, the room and room, through door and rock-hewn door, she felt herself made one with all she saw. A seared identity within her world. She knew herself as the beloved of the Supreme. These gods and goddesses were he and she. The mother was she of beauty and delight. The word in Brahma's fast creating glass. The world's puissance on Almighty Shiva's lap. The master and the mother of all lives, watching the worlds their twin regard had made. And Krishna and Radha forever entwined in bliss, the adorer and adored, self-lost and one.
Thank you. So as she's moving through one room after another, one entranceway after another, she feels herself one, made one with everything that she saw. And this oneness, which is usually sealed up, hidden within us, wakes up and she knows who she is in all these beings. She knows that she is the beloved of the Supreme. And these gods and goddesses depicted there are expressions of herself and the Lord. She herself is the mother, the Supreme Mother, the mother of beauty and delight. She's the creative word in the clasp, the embrace of Brahma, the creative Lord. That is actually what her name means. Savitri is the name of the Shakti of Brahma. So, this is part of her role, to be the creative power, the creative word by which things are brought into existence. We see these beautiful ancient bronzes of the Lord and the Mother embracing. And here Sri Aurobindo gives us a beautiful description of what these images mean. There's the Mother of beauty and delight, who is the word of creation in the creative clasp of the Lord, Brahma. And she is an expression of the world power, the creative force which has manifested the whole universe, sitting on the lap of Shiva, who is also the Lord as creator as well as destroyer. The master and the mother of all lives. They are sitting there in this blissful embrace and watching the worlds, all these many, many worlds that their twin regard had made, the consciousness and the force which have given rise to all this. And another form which this reality takes shape in is the form of Radha and Krishna, the soul and the Lord in love forever. The adored, the adorer, the worshipper, the adorer, the soul, and the adored, the supreme, forever entwined in an embrace, blissful embrace, self-lost and one. She sees all this and she feels the reality of all this in herself. Will you read, please?
In the last chamber, on a golden seat, one sat whose shape no vision could define. Only one felt the world's unattainable found, a power of which she was a staying force, an invisible beauty, gold of the world's desire, a sun of which all knowledge is a beam, a greatness without whom no life could be. Thence,
well, we'll pause there, yeah. So this is, she sees the two in one, but behind them she sees the one. One sat, who is in a way formless, whose shape no vision could define. Only one felt that this one is the source, the fount from which all the worlds flow. But that fount can't be reached. It is unattainable, unknowable, ungraspable, unreachable. Only we can come near to it. And she feels that that one is a power of which she herself is a straying force. She's a power of that power, but she is moving around and wandering in the world. That power is her source, unchanging, permanent, always there. And that power is also a beauty, but a beauty which can't be seen, which is beyond the reach of the senses. But that beauty is what all the world is desiring. All our desires, all our longings are just forms of longing for that beauty, which is the only goal which can really satisfy us. And that power is also a sun, full of light and energy and warmth, of which all knowledge, all our knowledge, is just a little beam of that great original sun of consciousness. And that power, that sun, that one, is a greatness without whom no life could be. And when he says whom, he tells us that this is a person. No, this is not an impersonal state. This is a being. This greatness is experienced as a being, but at the same time as the source of everything which exists. Gumsun, would you read?
Thence all departed into silence, and all became formless and pure and bare. Then, through a tunnel door in the last rock, she came out where there shone a deathless sun.
Please continue.
Our house was there, all made of plain and white, and crossing a wall over doorless living fire. There suddenly she met her secret soul.
Thank you. Thence, from there, from that place or that state she is in, everything, it's as if everything goes away and only a sense of silent self is left. There's no form anymore. Everything is pure and bare and silent. But in the last rock wall of the cave, there's a tunnel. She has to pass through that tunnel. And when she passes through it, she comes out into a space where there's a deathless sun shining, an immortal day, an eternal day. And she finds herself in a house, a dwelling that is defined by flame and light. And again, she has to make a passage, crossing through a wall. There's no door in that wall. She has to pass through this wall of flame, living fire. And there, suddenly, she met her secret soul. Arti, you would read?
Belief stood immortal in transience, deathless dallying with momentary things, in whose white eyes of tranquil happiness, which pity and sorrow could not abrogate, infinity turned its gaze on finite shapes, observer of the silent steps of the hour. Eternity upheld the minutes acts, and the passing sins of the everlasting flame.
Yes. The characteristic of the soul is immortality in transience. These seem to be two contradictory things, but they're only contradictory to the mind. The soul is immortal, deathless, beyond change and decay. But it is here, it inhabits all this transience, all this that is always changing, that's always in movement. The soul is deathless, but it plays, it dallies with, it plays with momentary things, things that don't last long. She sees a face with eyes, wide eyes of tranquil happiness. And yet, that happiness, that look of happiness also contains pity and sorrow. But that pity and sorrow which is there does not abrogate, it doesn't cancel out the happiness. This is another of these amazing qualities of the soul, that all experience is bliss. So in these wide eyes, infinity, its infinity is looking through the eyes of the soul, turning its gaze on all this that is not infinite, that is finite, limited. It is observing time, the silent steps of the hours. It is infinite, it is eternal, but that eternal is not cancelling out all this that happens in time. It is supporting it, holding it up, all the acts of all the minutes. And all the passing scenes of the play in time and in space of that everlasting one. Mahalingam.
In the history of his selecting will, the divine comedy, a participant, the spirit's conscious representative, God delegate in our humanity, comrade of the universe, the transcendence way, he had come into the mortal body's womb to play at ball with time and circumstance.
It's this game, you always need two, at least two, to play ball, you know. So. The soul is God's delegate in our humanity. It's a comrade of the universe, but it's also a ray of the transcendent that is beyond time and space and manifestation. This soul, she, had come into this little space of the human body to play at ball, an interactive game with time and circumstance. This is the Spirit's conscious representative in the universe, in each of us. Within each of us, the soul is a participant, taking part in the divine comedy, the game of the Lord in manifestation. In the mystery of its selecting will, the soul chooses, and by its choice it participates in this game of the Lord. Joel, you would read?
The joy in the world her master movement is. The passion of the game lighted her eyes. The smile on her lips welcomed earth's bliss and grief. Her laugh was her return to pleasure and pain.
So this is the soul. Its master movement is joy, delight in the world here. And there's an intense enjoyment, the passion of the game, the intensity of this ball game lighted up the eyes of the soul, and she welcomes all happiness, the earth's bliss and grief, with a smile. She responds to pleasure and pain with laughter. This is the natural movement of the soul. Gentleman at the back there, do you like to read? No? Gopal?
All things he saw as a masquerade of truth, disguised in the costumes of ignorance, crossing the years to immortality. All she put on with the strong spirit peace.
Yes, let's pause there. So the soul sees everything as a masquerade of truth. A masquerade is when we put on masks and fancy costumes and disguise ourselves so that nobody knows who anybody else is, and we play, we have fun, we revel. No? A masquerade. So that's what this life is. Not only nobody else can recognize us, we can't even recognize ourselves. But the soul is aware of all this and sees it all as a masquerade, a fancy dress party. We are all disguised in the costumes of ignorance. And we are crossing the years, we're crossing through time to the state of immortality. And because the soul knows that, and knows that all this that happens here, whether it's pain or pleasure or whatever it is all part of this masquerade of truth, then she can face everything with the strong spirit's peace. The soul is not disturbed by any of all this that we experience here. The outer being gets shaken and distressed or excited and delighted. There's always this peace within. This is the true soul, the central being. But that central being delegates a representative to be with each of us in our humanity. You like to read, Mum?
Sure. But since she knows the toil of mind and life, as a mother feels and shares her children's lives, she puts forth a small portion of herself, a being no bigger than the thumb of man, into a hidden region of the heart to face the pang and to forget the bliss, to share the sufferings and endure earth's wounds, and labor amid the labor of the stars.
Thank you. So, that great central being has put forth a small portion of herself. And the Upanishad says it's no bigger than the thumb of a man. So when we read the fairy story about little Tom Thumb who rescues all his brothers and sisters, it's the soul which can save all the other parts of the being.
This is the psychic being.
This is the psychic, well, yes. This is the Chaitanya Purusha. Yes. Yes.
The she here, is that Savitri here? What is it?
This is her secret soul, and Savitri, of course, we've seen in the symbolism of the legend, she is an emanation or an avatar of the Supreme Divine Mother. So she's representing that Shakti part.
Yeah, she's actively acting, not just meeting, but doing something. Yeah.
Yes, reacting maybe. Yes, exactly. And what we have read about so far is the she, the reigning power. But she exteriorizes or projects something of herself into each of us as our individual soul, which he will describe its action. You know, it's here to face all the play, the ball play with time and circumstance. It has to share the suffering, has to endure and experience the wounds of the earth and labor amid this great labor that is going on in the material universe. Mom, you will read, please. Yeah.
This in us laughs and weeps, suffers the stroke, exults in victory, struggles for the crown. Identified with the mind and body and life, it takes on itself their anguish and defeat, bleeds with fate's whips and hangs upon the cross, yet is the unwounded and immortal self, supporting the actor in the human scene.
Thank you. So this is the individualized soul, no? That laughs and weeps and suffers, exults, delights in victory, struggles for mastery, to become a master and ruler. This soul is identified with the outer personality, with the mind and body and life. So it has to feel their anguish and defeat. It suffers from all the dreadful things that fate do. It even hangs upon the cross. It is the Christ in us. And yet at the same time, it is the unwounded and immortal self of each of us, supporting this little actor here, playing his part in the human scene. We are going to have to stop now, but I'll just read the last sentences of this section so that we know how the story ends for today. So there are these two parts, the being, the great being, and its mortal shape. Here, in this chamber of flame and light, they met. They looked upon each other, knew themselves, the secret deity and its human part, the calm immortal and the struggling soul. Then, with a magic transformation speed, they rushed into each other and grew one. Savitri has found her soul. Next week we will read something about the effect that this soul discovery and soul union has upon the outer being. On the walls, covered with significant shapes, looked at her the life scene of man and beast, and the high meaning of the life of gods, the power and necessity of these numberless worlds, and faces of beings and stretches of world space, spoke the succinct and inexhaustible hieratic message of the climbing plains. In their immensitude, signing infinity, they were the extension of the self of God, and housed, impassively receiving all, his figures and his small and mighty acts, and his passion and his birth and life and death, and his return to immortality. To the abiding and eternal is their climb, to the pure existence everywhere the same, to the sheer consciousness and the absolute force and the unimaginable and formless bliss, to the mirth in time and the timeless mystery of the triune being who is all and one, and yet is no one but himself apart. There was no step of breathing men, no sound, only the living nearness of the soul. Yet all the worlds and God Himself were there, for every symbol was a reality and brought the presence which had given it life. All this she saw and inly felt and knew, not by some thought of mind, but by the self. A light not born of sun or moon or fire, a light that dwelt within and saw within, shedding an intimate visibility, made secrecy more revealing than the word. Our sight and sense are a fallible gaze and touch, and only the Spirit's vision is wholly true. As thus she passed in that mysterious place, through room and room, through door and rock-hewn door, she felt herself made one with all she saw. A sealed identity within her woke. She knew herself the beloved of the Supreme. These gods and goddesses were he and she. The mother was she of beauty and delight, the Word in Brahma's vast creating clasp, the world puissance on almighty Shiva's lap, the master and the mother of all lives, watching the worlds their twin regard had made. And Krishna and Radha forever entwined in bliss, the adorer and adored, self-lost and one. In the last chamber, on a golden seat, one sat whose shape no vision could define. Only one felt the world's unattainable fount, a power of which she was a straying force, an invisible beauty goal of the world's desire. A sun of which all knowledge is a beam, a greatness without whom no life could be. Thence all departed into silent self, and all became formless and pure and bare. Then through a tunnel dug in the last rock, she came out where there shone a deathless sun. A house was there, all made of flame and light, and crossing a wall of doorless living fire, there suddenly she met her secret soul. A being stood, immortal in transience, deathless, dallying with momentary things, in whose wide eyes of tranquil happiness, which pity and sorrow could not abrogate, infinity turned its gaze on finite shapes. Observer of the silent steps of the hours, eternity upheld the minute's acts and the passing scenes of the everlasting's play. In the mystery of its selecting will, in the divine comedy a participant, the Spirit's conscious representative, God's delegate in our humanity, comrade of the universe, the transcendent ray, she had come into the mortal body's room to play at ball with time and circumstance. A joy in the world, her master movement here, the passion of the game lighted her eyes. A smile on her lips welcomed earth's bliss and grief. A laugh was her return to pleasure and pain. All things she saw as a masquerade of truth, disguised in the costumes of ignorance, crossing the years to immortality. All she could front with the strong spirit's peace. But since she knows the toil of mind and life, as a mother feels and shares her children's lives, she puts forth a small portion of herself, a being no bigger than the thumb of man, into a hidden region of the heart, to face the pang and to forget the bliss, to share the suffering and endure earth's wounds and labor mid the labor of the stars. This in us laughs and weeps, suffers the stroke, exults in victory, struggles for the crown. Identified with the mind and body and life, it takes on itself their anguish and defeat, bleeds with fate's whips, and hangs upon the cross. Yet is the unwounded and immortal self supporting the actor in the human scene.